Look, we don't lie to you. We don't polish a turd and tell you it's gold. Week 8 of NFL action absolutely sucked. All right. I don't think there was a single good game. So we're not going to give a little preamble. We're just going to kick it off and go through maybe at least one good team that looks like they can play NFL caliber football, as the Philadelphia Eagles beat the New York Giants 38-20. Hayden, this one had a ton of narratives heading into it. We know these two teams played each other a couple weeks ago. Giants had a massive upset at home. Heading into this one, there's some uncertainty with A.J. Brown. He was out for this contest. But what I see is Saquon Barkley, 150 yards and 1 rushing score, his first 100-yard game of the season.
6-2, they have a bye, then they'll play the Packers, and they're riding off into that bye with 2 huge wins. It was great to see Saquon Barkley absolutely pop off, and it took the very first play. It was a big Landon Dickerson block if you watch him climb to the second level. So he helps out his center, climbs to the next level, and then it's just a race. And Saquon Barkley, it was never his fault. Earlier in this year, the numbers were not there. I thought his tape looked exactly how it did all last year, and the only difference was he did not have anywhere to run. And then this week, that was not the case. The Giants have struggled to stop the run the entire season. That continued here because even Tank Bigsby later in the game was getting to the perimeter every single time for about 10 yards. Like it was like almost 10 carries for like 100 yards. It was a absolute huge win for the offensive line to actually push the pile. The yards before contact, even if you remove the Saquon Barkley huge run, was massive. So shout out to them. I don't know if that's Eagles offensive line, Giants defensive line. That's the hard part here. Saquon Barkley does pick up a groin injury late, but he does have the bye week. I'm sure that they'll update that later on.
And I believe he mentioned to reporters that if the game was close, he might have been able to return, which is a real positive. Just real quick in this backfield, because it's something that we literally have not been able to say a single thing that was positive all season long. On Saquon Barkley's 65-yard touchdown run, he hit 21.68 miles per hour. And it's one thing that we say every single week that, as you just said, it's not him. It was the environment so far this year. And so he hadn't had a run of over, 18 yards so far, and he hit that. The other big takeaway, Hayden, is that Tank Bigsby, who they traded for in the preseason, is now this team's clear backup running back, which is kind of a massive change based on where Will Shipley and even frickin' former Packers running back that he's A.J. Dillon. And that's a huge leap for Tank Bigsby. And he looked decisive and he looked explosive.
Yeah, looked big and explosive in this one. They just got him to the perimeter on a couple different ways, and then he was making a couple missed tackles and picked up first down on over half of his carries. So, yeah, that's really good to know. I think that he's somebody that in a deep league, you should be picking him up before the bye week, even if Saquon's injury is not a big deal. And if you, for some reason, have Will Shipley or A.J. Dillon, we can pretty much remove them from the picture. Through the air, though, it was another great game for Jalen Hurts. Took a couple sacks, as he usually does, but has 4 passing touchdowns. He had a couple of downfield shots. He got Devontae Smith on a bunch of crossers underneath. He did not score a touchdown, but did lead the team with 9 targets. 84 yards is nothing to sneeze at. Dallas Goedert had a couple touchdowns. He had a little slant touchdown early on in the game, and then Saquon Barkley was left wide open for another touchdown on just a coverage bust. And then even Jahan Dotson straight up mossed as a defender. Did want to note, the Giants secondary was already without Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. They had other secondary members leave this game. So it was really like, I know that A.J. Brown was not there as well, but the Giants secondary is just one to obviously attack as we move forward. So it was not like the craziest Jalen Hurts game ever, but because there was a lot of players that were wide open here, but it was good to see that the deep ball, there were some wins there as usual. And this team is kind of, if you just refresh through 8 games or 6-2, they got some momentum, and the defense stepped up. Jalen Hunt had a career high 9 pressures. Like that was one of the missing ingredients. So the defense had some struggles early on. The ground game had some struggles. Those 2 things picked up in this one.
Dallas Goedert is like this team's passing red zone offense. It really is that simple. Another 2 scores here. Like you said, 3 catches for 28 yards. Okay, let's talk about the Giants, because Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo had been a sweet duo to watch. The Bash Brothers, some might say. And maybe the big takeaway for them, Hayden, is that Cam Skattebo severely injures his ankle at points in the opposite direction, and he's actually staying in Philadelphia to have emergency surgery on it, and easily lost for the season.
Out for the year. It depends on what type of dislocated. If it was like a broken leg or an actual dislocated ankle will kind of determine how bad it is for next year.
If it's both,
yeah, it could be. Who knows exactly what the details. I know that the probably stuck through his skin, and that's why he had surgery. So, long story short, unfortunately, out for the season. There was nothing he could have done about it. It was just like a little receiving rep over the middle and just got tackled awkwardly with it. It was not because he runs hard or anything like that. It was just, this could have happened to anybody. Terrible luck. Obviously, kind of just took the air out for the Giants offense here. Devin Singletary has like a wheel route reception. Is a really nice play, but it was largely Tyrone Tracy. So Tyrone Tracy is going to be the top pickup of the week, pending some other injuries as well. Daniel Bellinger leaves, but really there was not like a whole lot going through the offense. Jackson Dart, I thought, was making a lot of plays, took some sacks, but 3 of them were actually against the defensive tackles. The interior offensive line remains a little bit of a weakness there, but was out of structure, making some plays. But really, like the Giants were on the receiving end of a couple really, really tough calls. First, we'll start with Darius Slayton, 68-yarder touchdown called back. It was a ticky-tack offensive pass interference. I thought Quinyon Mitchell was holding against him. Slayton pushes off. That would have been a really nice play for us in best ball. But the other one was earlier in the game. I just wanted to save this for last. The tush push. We have another problem with the tush push. So it's not just the false starts. The tush push, they blow it dead because he thought there was a forward progress. Jalen Hurts was very clearly moving forward. I get why it's harder to rule forward progress because you're in the middle of a pile, but that's one of the problems with the tush push. As he's extending, the ball gets ripped out from Kayvon Thibodeau. They say you're not allowed to challenge that because of forward progress. If you listen to the whistle, I thought the whistle was well after the ball coming out. Either way, the Giants did not get the ball after all this. Brian Daboll tried to challenge it. It didn't go anywhere. All of a sudden, the Eagles were in the end zone. So those were like 2 huge plays. It wouldn't have mattered. The Eagles were definitely the better team. They would have won regardless. But that was another massive problem with the tush push. And at this point, we're coming up with new ways to make this more controversial. And most likely, this is going to be the last season we'll have it.
The referees just can't officiate it properly. And if that's the case, then it can't be a football play. It's that simple. We pointed it out after week 1, week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs, how it was multiple false starts in a row and none were called. And then now he's truly getting pushed from behind, going forward, extending for a first down. It's not the goal line. And so the ball gets ripped away. And as you said, when you watch the replay, the whistle is clearly blown after the football is in the Giants' hands, yet the referees say it's forward progress. And so just there's nothing you can do about it. A terrible officiated call, and it's kind of becoming a theme here with this play. And so enjoy it while you can, because I just do not know how. I am not anti-tush push, Watch other teams attempt it across the league, and it's just not successful. Watch the Bears try to run a quarterback sneak with Caleb Williams, we're about to talk about. Truly horrific, But it has gotten to a point where, 1, you run it 4 times in a row, and that's not good television. I'm just saying it from the optics angle. And 2, if referees are not calling it correctly, and these are meaningful 3rd and short, 4th and short plays, then the rest of the NFL is just going to do something about it. That is where we're headed right now.
Yeah, it was already a vote, and it was a pretty close vote. And I figured it was Dean Blandino, one of the referees in the booth. He was just saying, it's a hard, like anything up the middle, forward progress is really hard to kind of get right because you're trying to protect the players, but at the same time, the pile I thought was moving forward too. So just one of those things. Did you want to just wrap all the way back to Jackson Dart real quick? The numbers will not wow you. He went 14 for 24, took 5 sacks. The Eagles pass rush was winning. They had no answers for Jalen Carter. Nobody does. He's still making so many plays out of structure. He's going to run into some sacks. A lot of these players, like Jackson Dart, will. But there was still some like big 3rd and 12s that he was moving the football. And he did not have a lot of help, like Bo Collins out there, Wanda Robinson, Darius Slayton. So, it's going to be really tough. You lose Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo. That makes it like one of the worst supporting cast you could possibly drop for the rest of the way. So, I thought he played pretty well, better than the box score would indicate.
We have the same take every single week. I just wonder how many wins Brian Daboll has to have in order to keep his job. I mean, maybe there's 2 left on the schedule. So we'll see. On any given week, anything can happen. But he is furious
when
things
don't
go his way.
Oh my gosh.
Furious.
He's so pissed.
Okay. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles have some really fun matchups, and you're going to see probably at least one of these teams in the NFC Championship in the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions over the next 2 weeks. So it's a preview of whatever's to come here in December and January. Let's flip it on over to the Baltimore Ravens coming out of their bye week, Hayden, going 2-5, beating the Chicago Bears 30-16. No Lamar Jackson in this game. The point spread switches from 7.5-point favorites to the Ravens to 2.5-point road favorites here for the Chicago Bears. And in the end, they win by 14 freaking points. Was this a Todd Monken masterclass? Like, what the heck happened here?
I mean, it was kind of everybody masterclass. They started the game out 9 for 9 through the air. Tyler Huntley, Zay Flowers caught a bunch of passes underneath, converted 7 of his 9 targets for 63 yards. Did not score a touchdown in this one. That only touchdown through the air was actually to Charlie Kohler on a little play action attempt. But yeah, it was a well-managed game. You can feel that the Chicago Bears defense was not overwhelming, that they can't really stop the run all that well. And then like their entire secondary, the top 4 corners were out. So that made the matchups easier for Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. Bateman had one of the better catches of the week, but classic Rashad Bateman only has 51 yards scoreless in this one. So it doesn't really matter for fantasy purposes. Derrick Henry gets 2 touchdowns here, both in the red area, 21 for 71. Nothing like too magical there. For Tyler Huntley, real quick though, he had a 29-yard scramble, 53 yards on the ground. That was the real difference here. And it just goes back. Why was Cooper Rush the number 2 like a couple weeks ago? I mean, it's very similar offense. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is way more explosive, way better down the field, all that type of stuff. But trying to do the Cooper Rush thing, like that hit a real rock bottom, and this felt a lot better.
Prioritize Cooper Rush during the offseason as the backup. And Cooper Rush has certainly had moments as a Cowboys backup, but obviously the offense is entirely different when it's someone with the lack of mobility with Cooper Rush in there versus somewhat of a similar playbook with Tyler Huntley in there.
Did want to note Ronnie Stanley was like laying on the ground, like visibly in pain. He's been battling through injuries like for years now, but heading into this week and the week before, he was on the injury report too. So don't know the final update there. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens play on Thursday Night Football. Lamar Jackson will be out there, or he at least better be out there because of what happened
up and
this
down
last
the
week.
sideline.
Yeah, well, there's that. But I just wanted to quickly hit on just whatever happened on Friday. They're going to get fined very heavily. Like that was a big no-no. Like they broke the NFL rules for a reason. He was not a full participant because he was on the freaking scout team. Harbaugh said he was a full participant. They changed the official designation the day after. So you just talked about how much the lines swung, but obviously if you're the Bears, you don't know which quarterback it's going to be. So yeah, a big fine, maybe a draft pick. I don't know, but that was something that the Ravens absolutely could not get right. But it also did show that Lamar Jackson is probably going to return.
Yeah, it's manipulating the injury report. You know, you can't be a full-time participant on the scout team and be a full-time participant because, as you have said, it's attached to based on what your normal activities are. And Lamar Jackson is normally the starter. And if he doesn't get all the starting snaps, then he's not a full participant.
Easy.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, they lied. They straight up lied.
Okay, I need to ask about this Ravens team because Derrick Henry has had an abysmal week 2 through week 6, and they had the bye week in week 7. And then here he has 21 carries, 71 yards, and 2 scores. It's just a long run of 10. Did it look any better, or was this, oh, we're leading by a lot, this is the focal point of our offense, and he gets the goal line touchdowns on top of it?
Well, I think throughout the entire year, Derrick Henry has been an explosive rusher, and you see that. Now, sometimes at the end of his explosive runs, he's fumbling the football. But if you look at like the yards before contact and his success rate, and it's been really, really low. So in this one, once again, under 1 yard before contact. So he had to work for his yards. Once again, he had the 2 goal line touchdowns to kind of seal it. But the Ravens just like had the ball for a lot of this game, and the Bears like did not feel like they were clicking on offense at all. So it was one of those situations where the defense was making some plays. Like Nate Wiggins had a good play that we'll talk about. So like in general, the team was kind of vibing. There's nothing to really take away from Derrick Henry. Just a reminder though, when they score 30 points on offense, Derrick Henry is going to be scoring a lot of touchdowns. And guess what the team totals are for the rest of the season? It's going to be like 26 up to 31, depending on the matchup.
Okay, let's talk about the Chicago Bears here, because I noted that I thought last week was Caleb Williams' worst performance. In this game, he goes 25 of 38, 285 yards, 1 interception. We won't start with like the final 4 down goal to go sequence because they were down 14 points, but it's kind of to me like a perfect encapsulation of where they're at, where there were certain games where it felt like everything was in sync and he has learned this Ben Johnson offense. And yet in this one, Hayden, it certainly differed from that.
Yeah, the first drive, 13 plays, but only results in a field goal. The second drive, 11 plays, ends up in a field goal. And there's a couple missed throws that are kind of involved in there that might have swung things differently. But in general, it was starting out decent. But later on, there was just some moments of like really bad, inconsistent play from Caleb Williams. The most egregious one was the interception where he just like takes that pause. Remember we were talking about the robotic stuff from his, like he just has that pause. So he's on either end of the spectrum where he's like not like he's like literally my controller just ran out of batteries, or I'm sprinting to the sideline at full speed and throwing the ball like I'm Derek Jeter. So he needs to find that Goldilocks zone, to steal another one of your phrases there. It was a bad game, but you can't be late and pause and throw the ball over the middle. And that allowed Nate Wiggins, who by the way is playing really good corner, one of the fastest players in the league, plays a lot of man coverage, kind of undercuts Rome Odunze. But that was a really bad play. There was a couple like really bad situations, like an intentional grounding that cost them 3 points where he was hot. He knew he was hot. He was trying to either throw the ball to Rome Odunze on an out route who either ran too far and didn't know that he was hot, or he was waiting for Colston Loveland running the option route. That cost them. And then the cringy goal line sequence when they were down 4 where they're rushing. He gets down at the goal line. He tries to quarterback sneak it, which I don't think that's like the worst call, but does not get it. Of course, there's a huge pile on everybody. It takes forever to get there. It looks like there was going to be a delay of, or not a delay of game, a false start. They were kind of struggling to get whatever play call in next, and he's a little bit scattershot. DJ Moore is in the end zone, and the ball just goes incomplete. So that was a very cringy
he tries like
end.
this sidearm through a window, and again, DJ's wide open in the middle of the field and just totally sails him. And the other part of that was on 2nd and goal. It was a 2-yard pass well short of the goal line, and so that ran the clock on top of it. And this was all after a 42-yard ridiculous one-hand stab grab from DJ Moore, where Caleb like dropped his eyes, did the hokey pokey, ran to the left side, and then just launches it to no one. I'm sure he was targeting DJ Moore. But I mean, if DJ doesn't come down with this miraculous catch, then it's another, what type of play are you doing here on 2nd and 10 when trailing by 14?
Yeah, it just depends on how you read that. That was like I would say the good of Caleb. And there was a couple plays where like he out of structure makes a play that Rome drops. And there's that one where it was a really nice play by both of them. But in general, we can't just grade to the flashes in year 2. Like we can do that as a prospect, we can do that as a rookie, but at some point you just can't grade towards the flashes. Once again, Ben Johnson told the TV broadcast, and they made sure to relay that to the audience, that the second year in this system is going to look a lot cleaner than the next one because they're asking this offense to do a whole lot, and there's a lot of details, and they're still trying to figure that out. I think there is like some actual truth to that, but also that is a little bit of excuse making. We can say the same thing about Drake May and the Josh McDaniels offense. So Caleb has struggled more in October than he did in September. The ground game was solid. Luther Burden leaves with a concussion. Colston Loveland plays 81% of the snaps. Did all right. Nothing too fancy there. I thought DeAndre Swift had another decent game, scores a touchdown at the goal line. Had a couple of nice receptions, 25-yarder down to the red area. Last note for fantasy purposes, though, Kyle Monangai, 46% snaps. And I looked at it. There was no like garbage time with that. They were pretty much dead even the entire way. DeAndre Swift was more involved, had the better game in general. But on the first drive, Kyle Monangai did have a goal line carry. So did DeAndre Swift. Both of them got stuffed. That's why they had that field goal. But that's pretty interesting. Like it's more of the Gibbs, Monty on a much worse offense, but like that style of backfield at this point. And really the guy through the air is like DJ Moore had a couple yards after the catch plays, but it was like Rome Odunze the entire time. So finished with 114 yards, drew a man coverage flag on a dig route, had 4 catches, I believe, on the first drive even too. So I would rank it as Rome, Swift, and then it's like DJ Moore, Monangai, and Colston Loveland kind of just battling.
And I believe Luther Burden leaves with a concussion, which delays any impact he might have in the future. All right, your final game of the night. The Houston Texans in a big bounce back spot at home, a game they're actually favored in despite the buzz of the San Francisco 49ers heading into it. Houston Texans win 26-15 and improve to 3-4, which brings the 49ers to 5-3. If you just look at the box score, 30 of 39, 318, 2 scores, 1 interception here, and 7 carries for 30 yards for CJ Stroud. Nearly flawless. And the eye test was even more the case. Even without Nico Collins, you got the 3 Iowa State Hawkeyes. Xavier Hutchinson, 5 for 69 and 1. Jalen Noel, 5 for 63. And then Jaden Higgins, 4 for 34 and 1. Go Cyclones.
Yeah, Cyclones were just made the offense feel so much faster. I mean, just so much faster. We still got a little bit of Braxton Berrios, but there was some real like nice wrinkles this week versus in the previous weeks. And once again, this was looking a little bit more rookie year schematically than what we saw over like the last year and a half. The Texans ended up finishing this game with 26 plays with a 6th offensive lineman on the field. So a lot of those, it's 2 wide receiver sets. Jalen Noel had a nice big crossing route where that was off a 6 offensive line play where so it's like lots of protection, only 2 guys in the route, way downfield, and they get a big explosive there. Xavier Hutchinson also had a big play there, lots of runs out of that. So that was the most plays by a team with 6+ offensive linemen by any team this entire season. That also helped them out. Only a 13% pressure rate for the Texans. So without like looking that up, that's the best of the season for the Houston Texans. And we have to figure out, is that a 49er stat or is that just a kind of a new wrinkle to this Texans offense where I thought the pressure plan felt much better in just putting a big 6 offensive lineman out there rather than have a tight end come across the field and try to pick up an edge rusher, which I saw last week. I thought was nice.
Well, it could be both,
Yeah.
It could be that this with Blake Fisher, I think he was playing the pseudo tight end offensive line, 6th offensive lineman role. And then, for the 49ers, they have no pass rushers left, right? Like even Bryce Huff, who has taken them up a level or two after Nick Bosa went down. And they have no one else. Like Micah Williams has been a run defender during his rookie season, and they just don't have anyone else to offer. Like when CJ Stroud with this offensive line gets sacked 0 times, and as you said, a pressure rate of about 15%, then I mean, your defense has some issues. So I don't want to be a Texans hater. I want to believe in them, and I especially want to believe in Woody Marks going 11 for 62 on the ground and then 4 for 49 in the air. While I see that Nick Chubb, has the most carries at 17 for 56. But Hayden, if we're like, allowing these rookie wide receivers to get more run too, is it kind of just time to turn the backfield over to Woody Marks?
That's what I would be doing. Woody Marks was breaking off a bunch of nice plays here. His big one was the 50-yarder, mostly after the catch. But on that was CJ Stroud stepping up into the pocket, like 3-4 hitches in a row, and then getting to his check down. And then Woody Marks sprints down the field. Like that was like when the offense felt fast, like that was a play that you can definitely point out to. For the most part, I thought CJ Stroud was just throwing the ball accurately. He had one inaccurate throw that was an interception. That was going into halftime. Didn't really matter all that much, but a lot of stepping up into the pocket, lots of downfield attempts in this one. We had, just to hit on these, Hutchinson had a crossing touchdown, which was a nice play, a little blitz pick up there. She showed some nice speed. He also had like a really nice high point catch. And then with Jaden Higgins, zone coverage, a little like glance route, like the kind of deep slant route. Skinny post variety for a touchdown there. So nothing from Dalton Schultz. They just didn't really need him and got a bunch of explosives here, which was nice. They're now 9th in the conference. They're not going to catch the Colts in the division, but this team is definitely in the mix for a wild card. And hopefully like the speed and the little wrinkles in pass protection are like kind of the things that can unlock CJ Stroud moving forward.
Well, the pass rush is going to be tested in the next 2 weeks because it's the Denver Broncos and the Jacksonville Jaguars over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to find out if this is real or not. If this is like a pseudo Ravens thing when they win 42-10 or 44-10 and then get crushed by the Seahawks. And then you have this one against the 49ers. But look, you can only play who's in front of you. And Hayden, let's talk about the 49ers end of this and who was in front of them. Mac Jones statistically looks like one of his worst performances. 19 of 32, 193, 2 scores, 1 interception. And while CMC got it going on the ground last week, here, just 8 for 25. And then it felt like, just while watching, all 3 of his catches for 43 yards were basically on the final drive of the game. Yeah.
So they had the ball at halftime for 5 minutes and 29 seconds. So it was like punt, and then they had like a scoring drive with their last drive. So there was penalties. There was some like short throws that were missed. There were some bad runs early. And then I mentioned there's like a 13 play sequence, 11 play sequence right off the bat from the Texans. So the time of possession, I don't love that stat in general, but it was so lopsided in this one that all the stats are like kind of hard to take serious in this one because the 49ers did not have the ball. Now, they weren't moving the ball, and that's why that happened. So luckily on national Tight end day, we did get George Kittle seam ball touchdown in traffic. That was a good throw from Mac Jones there. Really nice catch from George Kittle. George Kittle probably could have had a second touchdown. There was kind of just a little concept where both tight ends were running to the right. Both of them are wide open on a little bootleg play action. The ball ends up going to Tonjes instead of George Kittle, but I thought Kittle was moving fine out there. Juwan Jennings had a couple near plays for him. A big post route where if that was Ricky Pearsall or Brandon Ayuk, that probably would have been a touchdown for Juwan. Barely gets there and ultimately does not catch the ball on a big post route. Gets tackled at the 1 yard line on another play out there, but nothing really from Kendrick Bourne, nothing really from CMC, but game script was like so wonky. I mean, at halftime, I don't have the score written down, but it was like pretty clear that the Texans were dominating in this one.
Oh, I mean,
I'll say this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the Niners, next week, I think they're going to get Brock Purdy back. I think there's going to be a chance that Ricky Pearsall's back. They're going to activate Brandon Ayuk's practice window. I believe it's like week 10 and 11 or 11 and 12. They get the Cardinals and the Rams, so like big division games coming up on the schedule. I think they'll be fully healthy on offense then. You are not going to be able to fix this defense. This defense just ran out of bodies. And in my notes, there's like wide open plays, no pass rush. We mentioned the stats on that as well. This 49ers team, when they're fully healthy on offense and this defense is this bad, I think we're going to have some crazy shootout games. Like I would not be surprised if we go on a run here where the 49ers, even after this bad game, they're projected for 28 points moving forward just because we're going to get a lot of the horses back in this offense. And like the reality is like Kendrick Bourne, Juwan Jennings, that's just like not a fast enough wide receiver group. And you're going to get some speed back. Hopefully if Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk are like somewhat themselves, which we don't know.
Yeah. The reason why we wanted to draft so many 49ers this year is because they had on paper the easiest schedule in the NFL. And, you know, that's proved itself out in a few of these games, but the injuries, I think, have kind of limited their ceiling in terms of points. Coming up, they do have the Giants. We'll see which direction that goes. Then they have the Rams. I would assume a loss there. Then you have like the Cardinals and the Panthers. The Browns defense is tough. And then the Titans after that. So like there's a stretch of 3 to 4 games-ish in a row that if they're back to full health, we haven't seen the best 49ers football. But again, we already got Brock Purdy back for a game and he wasn't healthy and then he has to miss more. We got Ricky Pearsall back for a game, then he's not healthy and he has to miss more. So I just hope these guys are fully healthy when they come back and we get them for the entire rest of the season. Because there's still, to me, plenty of time for these guys to make a massive impact for your fantasy teams and your best ball backs.
Yeah, it just comes down to the health, all those guys. And hopefully it's not just a huge rotation where like Kendrick Bourne's still playing, Juwan Jennings doesn't get dealt at the trade deadline, and then all of a sudden it's just like really hard to kind of split it up a bunch of ways. But I think this team was so injured and we knew this like going ahead of the game, largely kind of throw it away, you know. I mean, but a 13% pressure rate, I think maybe if I was focusing on one stat, that's the one that would make me nervous if you're the 49ers.
We booted Hayden for the rest of the show. Now, in fact, he just has dad duty the rest of the night. So I got to bring in my guy, Brentley Weissman, for the remaining 6+ games to discuss here. And Brentley, we got to start with the frickin' 6-2 New England Patriots. That's very cool to see because Brentley, to me, this Patriots team is quite enjoyable, quite entertaining, and quite likable. I mean, putting 32 points on this Browns defense, even with Myles Garrett with 5 sacks in this game is an incredible feat. Tell me how this 282, 3 touchdown, 1 interception performance from Drake May happened here.
Yeah, I mean, Drake May, again, I said it last week, he's just one of the best young passers in the league. I mean, his athleticism, his ability to really put the ball anywhere on the field is outstanding. And I just want to say, you know, Josh McDaniels, in terms of offensive coordinator, he's doing a hell of a job. His ability to get these players into space, isolate Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, like they have really good playmakers and they're doing a really good job spreading the ball around.
Well, let's talk about spreading that football around because like you said, that's exactly what they did. Matt Collins, 7 for 89. Kayshon Boutte again pops up 3 for 75 and 1. All right. And then we have Trevion Henderson, who, as we had a 5-minute conversation last week of why he didn't get the 5 freaking meaningless carries and Terrell Jennings did against this Titans team, pops up here. And Brentley, it's early in the game. 10 carries for 75 yards. Did he look a lot better? Was he used throughout the entire game? And then why so much, so effective, so early on in this one?
Yeah, again, like there's no rhyme or reason, I feel like, with this backfield distribution.
Good.
So that's helpful. So Ramondre still outsnapped him and still outtouched him, but Travion Henderson, he looked much more efficient, much more explosive than Ramondre with the ball in his hands. I think he had 10 carries for 75 yards, ran the ball really, really well. He made guys miss in the open field. Like, he looked like the dynamic player that we saw at Ohio State. However, of course, because we can't have nice things, he fumbled late in the game, in the red zone, really bad fumble. And then, of course, the next series, he doesn't go in. So hopefully, he's not going to be punished, because I thought he looked really, really good.
What were the runs? Were they between the tackles? Yep. Were they on the edges? Because obviously this Browns defensive line had their way with the pass rushing department. 6 sacks and Drake May, as you talked about, 5 for Myles Garrett, which is just an insane number.
Insane.
And this Patriots pass protection offensive line have been much better than, their run blocking so far. So any running back here popping up for 7.5 yards per carry, when in comparison, Mondre had 2.4, is a stark contrast.
Yeah. No, so a lot of his runs are more kind of inside zone. Him able to kind of get skinny through a crease and just break it. That's kind of where most of his production came from. But there was also one kind of quick toss. He was able to use his speed and get to the corner and kind of break it from, I think, a 10-yard gain. So it was a good mix, I would say, of inside and outside. But yeah, I mean, I think his skill set's certainly best kind of between the outside runs.
And we'll find out, because obviously this is the first time he fumbled, and he never fumbled at Ohio State. Meanwhile, he's dealt with fumbles to Ramondre and Antonio Gibson all season long. They got punished in game, but not after game. So we will see what changes here for the Patriots. And yeah, anything you want to say about the Kayshon Boutte stuff, or even Stephon Diggs? While he's not a full-time player, his impact for this team is still incredibly high, I think. And he's the receiving touchdown other than Hunter Henry and Boutte here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Diggs, I mean, they don't throw to him a lot, but when they throw to him, it's on those key gotta have it downs. Their chemistry between Diggs and May is outstanding. And I think as the season progresses, I think Diggs will get much more involved in the offense moving forward. But yeah, I mean, Mac Hollins had a big day. Kayshon Boutte, I mean, the ball was just going everywhere, And, in the second half, once they started really getting cooking, you just saw Drake May become much more comfortable. And yes, Myles Garrett was ridiculous. I mean, it was truly unreal. But yeah, overall, this offense was really efficient and everyone kind of got the ball.
Was Myles Garrett opposite Will Campbell, the rookie, a lot? Yeah. Was he going across the offensive line, or did they kind of say, oh, you have this phenom chiseled out of stone, and while Will Campbell has played well this season, he does have short arms, and this is why maybe short arms are discussed during the draft process?
Yeah, I'll say Will Campbell will be having nightmares of Myles Garrett for the next week. So I think 3 of his sacks were on Will Campbell. And then the other one was on the left side. And then he also was reduced inside and got a sack as well.
Wow. Yeah, I think Myles Garrett entered this game with 5 sacks and finishes it now with 10. You opened with this, and I'll close with this. I think Drake May got on the microphone after the game and said Josh McDaniels was born to be an offensive coordinator, which slight dig at his head coaching career. But very, very nice compliment to his coordinating skills. That's for sure. And look, this Patriots schedule is cake. They're 6-2. And because, they finished last in their division last year, it's easy. It's the Falcons next week. The Bucs is tough. Then it's the Jets and the Bengals and the Giants in the 3 games after that. So let's keep it rolling in New England. Okay, let's talk about the Browns end. There's a pretty amazing quote here from head coach of the Patriots, Mike Vrabel, that on the Browns offense after the game, quote, they hadn't turned it over. And then when their, quote, gimmick plays ran out, I thought we played pretty good defense. So Brentley, fair that because Kevin Stefanski and his gimmick plays were the only source of offense here for the Browns?
It's fair. And again, I'm an Oregon guy, and Dylan Gabriel, we got to have a conversation. I think now is probably the time. I mean, he had 2 terrible interceptions. One was essentially just a punt. I don't even know what he was thinking on one of the throws. And then, Josh, inexcusable, intentional grounding in the end zone. There was no one even remotely in the area when he threw it away. Safety. it's like, what are we doing? And so, yeah, this Browns offense is really struggling today, and Gabriel gives them no shot, unfortunately. So once their first 15 scripted plays ran out, it was nothing. They couldn't do anything against this defense.
A lot of those scripted plays seemed to go to Harold Fannin.
Yeah.
6 receptions, 62 yards, 1 score. I know that he lined up as a fullback, kind of escaped out. No one covered him because not many people catch footballs from the fullback position. And then he rumbles that one for, I think, a long gain of 19.
Yeah.
So heavily involved. And look, whenever we discuss this in Stats versus Film, we always point to the Browns being number 1 in tight end usage. And again, their 2 leading receivers, Fannin 62, and then 4 for 37 and 1 score here for David Njoku on top of it.
Yeah, I think just Gabriel, he's much more comfortable throwing kind of, to the tight ends, bigger targets. Naturally, when he's the starter, those tight ends are going to eat. And then just one thing of note, Quinshon Judkins left the game early, shoulder injury, didn't return. And then Dylan Sampson really was kind of the lead back after his departure.
And as we saw, the first 2 weeks when Dylan Sampson's the lead runner is much different than when Quinshon Judkins is the leading rusher. And I also want to point out that Jerry Jeudy had 2 targets and a 0 and a 0 and a 0 across the board. Final conversation
Christian
here.
Gonzalez had him locked up.
Yeah. Final conversation here on Dylan Gabriel. Shedeur Sanders wasn't active for this game. He had an injury heading into it. I do wonder if the owner steps in and says, because he's the one that continues to say publicly, all 3 of these guys, including Joe Flacco at the front, are going to get starts this year, which to me in the back of my head was never a good thing for Dylan Gabriel, even if we kind of all assumed that was going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, after today, I feel you have to make the move. Like, it was just so lifeless, there's just no excitement. There's no upside with this offense. Make the move. You got to see what you got in Shedeur and kind of evaluate them both.
And at the same time, none of it matters because they're just going to take a quarterback in this draft. And that's where it's all headed to. So that's why I've never really spent effort or time in this whole discourse between Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, because only one of them is going to be the backup quarterback next year. All right. I'm going to lift your spirits here, Brentley, because we go from one Oregon Duck in Dylan Gabriel to one Oregon Duck in Bo Nix, as the Denver Broncos were kind of back, at least against the Dallas Cowboys. 44-24 in Mile High in this one. And it was a huge showcase of the 2025 rookie class here for the Broncos. We got an RJ Harvey touchdown. We've got a Pat Bryant touchdown, and we've got even a Jody Barron interception on top of it. Now, it didn't start out great. Like, the Broncos actually got their first down on their first drive after going 3 and out in each of the last 3 games. So maybe that was some foreshadowing of how good this game was going to be for them. But in the very next play, Bo Nix throws an interception. Totally erratic and off target on a slant to Pat Bryant. It looked so bad that you thought it was a miscommunication, but it wasn't a miscommunication. It was just a bad ball. Now, on that next drive, we got a sick 30-yard pass play from Dak to CeeDee Lamb when Dak Prescott got clobbered. George Pickens gets an end zone target, but it's knocked away by Patrick Surtain. But this was the first of 2 injuries to Patrick Surtain in this game. He goes down holding his right leg, does return on the next series, but then just before halftime, as he's trying to wrestle a football away or wrestle a defender or offensive player down, he goes down with a shoulder issue and then doesn't play in the entire second half. So that is certainly a injury that we are going to monitor. And then Lamb gets also an end zone target, but it's knocked away by Riley Moss. That's the high point for the Cowboys because they go 3 up. And after that, again, 3 touchdowns for RJ Harvey. The first one was a sweet pin pull with Garrett Bowles going to the outside, basically depleting a defensive back. And then you have Quinn Miners, the all-pro guard, getting to the second level. And again, truly depleting another Cowboys defender. And then you have RJ Harvey, who shows, I think, some nice patience and some nice vision, weaves between his blockers and then runs away from the defense and showcases, I think, the big playability that he has, despite not being touched on that play. His second touchdown was a 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line out of Wildcat, former high school quarterback, takes it in for the score. And then the 3rd touchdown was, again, 3rd and goal, where he's almost lined up adjacent to the quarterback, kind of behind the tight end. It's just a runaway play with mesh over the middle of the field to stall out the linebackers, and then they can't chase him, and he's faster than that, and he gets to the front pylon for a score. And yeah, I mean, that was truly the game. There's some elements here that we can talk about, Brentley, where J.K. Dobbins actually has an extremely effective rushing day, 15 carries for 111 yards. But obviously the short yardage, despite a smaller body, went to RJ Harvey in this one. And then Troy Franklin, your guy, has once again a fantastic day. 6 receptions, 89 yards, 2 scores. Whenever you look at the underlying metrics, he's kind of their go-to player inside of the red zone. And when that's the case and they score 44 points and you're facing the Dallas Cowboys, even if he's a roller coaster, guess what? A lot of these other wide receiver 2s and 3s are roller coasters and flex options. And so just go to the one that's projected for the most points on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no, I thought the Broncos looked good on offense today. I mean, definitely better than they did last week besides the fourth quarter. I'd say the lack of Courtland Sutton is interesting to me, because I do think he's like they're probably best player on that side of the ball, but there's just they just haven't gone on the same page, I feel like, this year between him and Bo.
Great question. I have something to say on this. So Tony Romo on the broadcast, because Courtland Sutton only had 1 catch in the first half, and it was actually on the final drive of the first half, said that Matt Eberflus had a game plan to eliminate Courtland Sutton from this game. I'm not sure how much that's the case because, we don't get to see these wide receivers and corner matchups. But guess what? When that happens, literally everyone else ate on the offense.
Yep.
Everyone. I mentioned Pat Bryant, who was being featured quite early on in this game. We mentioned the interception that went in his direction. He had another slant catch for about 16 yards. The next snap on a long run, he had a nice kick out block across the formation as well. And then Evan Ingram even had 4 for 36. But then Sutton does get it going in the second half, 4 for 67. But yeah, just not quite the, top 12 wide receiver stuff that we were hoping for on that side of the ball. Meanwhile, we do need to talk about this Cowboys defense because Jerry Jones, and I think his mouth, continues to get himself in trouble. I understand trading Micah Parsons from your perspective. If I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, you're just not going to get along with, his representation, and you think you offer this money and the relationship was dissolved. But then you can't say, well, we traded him because we wanted to improve our run defense and then get run over all season long on, 179 yards on 6.4 yards per pop here. Like, you have not improved your run defense at all. And you're actually still looking for someone to rush the passer because Bo Nix gets sacked 0 times in this game on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, this defense has been atrocious all year. And I feel like there's no answers currently on their roster. Like, they have no one that they can turn to and say, hey, like, you're the guy, you lead us. And they traded the guy away. They traded Micah. So it's going to be a long season for the Dallas Cowboys in terms of the defense.
Even if they just got to below average on defense, then this could be a playoff team that goes on a run. Like, we've seen that before, right? But they are just bottom of the barrel bad that, we're not even getting garbage times opportunities because Joe Milton pops in here for a touchdown pass with 8 minutes to go. So and look, I even think Brian Schottenheimer needs to understand this scenario for this team, because with about 3:18 left to go in the third quarter, I believe you're down about 15 points at this point. The Cowboys punt on 4th and 5 at the 44-yard line, their own 44-yard line. And that's like trusting your defense to get the ball back, which, by the way, 6 plays after that, the Broncos are already in the red zone. And then 12 plays, they're in the end zone for a touchdown. And so you just have to understand that, hey, we've invested so much in offense that 4th and 5 and shorter around the 50-yard line, we just got to go for it. Like, sure, the Cowboys pass rushes had their moments here or there, but this is not a unit that you can have any trust in or put any faith in, because you can't get off the field on third downs, and then you're allowing big plays on top of it. And then your cornerback unit is a mash group that continues to lose corners on a weekly basis. And so, again, just never punt. You cannot punt.
Yeah. I mean, literally keep the ball in your offense hands at all times, because that's the strength of their team. And their offense has been cooking all year. Obviously today it didn't go their way, but I would certainly not punt and always kind of keep the ball in Dak's hands.
Speaking of their offense, Dak 19 of 31, 188, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Wow. One of the interceptions was just before half. He was forcing it over the middle of the field, trying to get some points before half. And then Javonte Williams, because Dak didn't have any passing touchdowns is because both of Javonte Williams' rushing scores were basically from the 1 yard line. George Pickens did see a good amount of Patrick Surtain early, again, just in the first half. He actually finishes the leading receiver, 7 catches for 78 yards. CeeDee Lamb inside out, 7 for 74. Both guys got, penalties drawn on them. Riley Moss was put in a blender a few times and even had some, I would say, rough calls against him that probably shouldn't have been. But that's kind of it. Like, look, this Cowboys team is 3-4. They are who they are. We can trust their offense on a weekly basis, and we can definitely trust them against the Cardinals and the Raiders in their next 2 games with a bye week in between there. But like we talked about, it just feels like there's a ceiling on this team because the offense is bad and not even below average. The defense, I should say.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's go back to your second game. Speaking of offense and bad defense, the Miami Dolphins go into Atlanta and win 34-10. The Falcons have been the biggest confusing conundrum of the season. And we know Kirk Cousins came in this one and no Drake London on top of it. But Brentley, I feel like it would be unfair to start with anything else other than the Dolphins on offense with Tua Tagovailoa throwing 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest surprise for me of the weekend. Obviously, all the Falcons with no Michael Penix, no Drake London, but they did not even show up. And Miami and Tua did what they wanted. I mean, truly, like it was vintage Mike McDaniel offense. Everyone in space. Get the ball to the playmaker's hands. Jalen Waddle looked like prime Jalen Waddle. The explosiveness, the ability to kind of take the ball after the catch and explode for the long touchdown. I mean, you see the different gear that he has. And then really for the Falcons, I mean, they just couldn't stop the run. And Miami's offense just ran the ball down their throat and showed a level of physicality that I didn't think that they had. Ollie Gordon had a good game. Devin Achane obviously had a good game. And the overall unit just looked explosive. Like it was great to see for the Dolphins.
If I'm looking at the underlying metrics appropriately, we know that this Falcons pass rush has kind of been the strength of their team. Heck, they even traded up with this year's first round pick to go get James Pierce and spent, 2 first rounders on edge rushers. That is tough to get home when Tua Tagovailoa has a time to throw of 2.37 seconds. So you have to cover primary reads and quick options and quick outlets in order for your heavily invested pass rush to get home. And I also believe that didn't Jesse Bates leave this game too? So like their best cover man in the middle of the field, if you're just running cover 1 over and over and over again, you're going to get torn up by Mike McDaniel here in a dome.
Jesse Bates left and they got the ball out so quickly. And all of their playmakers were just making everyone miss in the open field. Like Atlanta Falcons could not tackle a soul today. And when that's the case, you're getting the ball out quick, getting the ball to Jalen Waddle, Ollie Gordon, Malik Washington, like all these playmakers, and they just didn't get touched. Like it was such a poor effort from the Falcons where it's almost, I don't want to take anything away from Miami because props to them, they did great. But the Falcons should be embarrassed today by their effort. Like it was pretty abysmal.
Okay, I'm somewhat bearing the lead because we have to talk about this Falcons offense.
Yeah.
Because it looked like on paper the biggest smash spot of the century for Bijan Robinson to have an incredible day. I mean, this Dolphins defense, who just gave up 206 rushing yards to Rico Dowdle a few years ago, we're now facing Bijan Robinson. And Bijan Robinson is stuffed for 9 carries, 25 yards, 3 catches for 23 yards. How the hell did this happen?
They just loaded the box and said, hey, if you guys are going to beat us, Kirk's going to have to beat us with his arm. But they had no weapons to stress the defense. And so Miami just straight up said, okay, here's 9 men in the box. Bijan, you can't do anything today. And he was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage multiple times and just couldn't get anything going on the ground. I mean, it was wild to see. But he couldn't break tackles. There was just no holes for him. And it was essentially running into a wall all game. And then by the time in the second half, they're already down by so much, they kind of just had to abandon the run. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of a perfect storm for him to have a bad day today.
How did Kirk look?
I don't think Kirk looked bad.
Okay.
I thought he played well. I thought he got the ball out. I thought he made good decisions. The issue was he had no one to throw to. Like Kadarius Hodge was his best receiver, I think, today. Like that's not going to be conducive to putting up good numbers. And so that was an issue, I would say. He was pressured quite a bit as well by Miami's defense. But I did think he looked good. Like if I was a quarterback needy team and I watched this game, like I'd be like, okay, like I would want to trade for Kirk Cousins. Like I thought he played well today.
Okay. If that's the said, then I do have to ask, because we do have Kyle Pitts, 9 catches for 59 yards, by far and away this team's leading offensive player. Hayden and I were suggesting people start Darnell Mooney, and he only goes throughout the entire game, 4 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards. And I think it's impossible for me to ask you and for you to have an answer of what went wrong here, because, you know, we're not seeing the routes. We're not seeing who's open. We can only look at what's on the screen, but that seems miserable without Drake London on the field. Darnell Mooney has been, you know, very productive when he has played so far this season. And this is basically a bottoming out in a spot that when we all needed him, he didn't deliver.
Yeah. So Kirk looked his way a few times. They just kind of just couldn't connect on a lot of it. You know, Mooney's so good on the deep stuff, the deep overs, those kind of post corners. That's not really Kirk's game anymore. And so he was finding Kadarius Hodge and Kyle Pitts more in the short, intermediate areas of the field. And so I just don't feel like he felt comfortable enough to sit back long enough in the pocket for those kind of long, deep shot plays to develop to Mooney. So that never really occurred today. But yeah, you would think Mooney would have a blow-up game without London, but yeah, it just didn't happen.
All right. Well, let's keep talking about some rushing attacks, because when the Buffalo Bills were in their bye week, Hayden and I both asked the question, what would they focus on? What would they improve on out of the bye week? My thought was, knowing Sean McDermott and when he previously made the offensive play caller change from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady, then they'll just lean on the rushing attack. And guess what? That's exactly what they did in Carolina as they beat the Panthers 40-9. And James Cook goes 19 carries for 216 yards and 2 scores. I mean, he was dicing, running through. By the way, a run defense that had kept Javonte Williams to absolutely nothing, Devon Achane to absolutely nothing, and Justin Fields and Breece Hall to absolutely nothing over the last 3 weeks. Those games did not even equal, I think, 120 rushing yards, and James Cook gets 216 by himself. And the headliner is the 64-yarder that he goes straight up the middle and runs through, I think, like a Nick Scott arm tackle, and then is off the races and just runs around everyone else. By the way, Khalil Shakir also gets a 54-yard touchdown where, you know, it's a short reception that he breaks tackles and runs down the field. Josh Allen finishes with 12 of 19 for 163 yards and 1 passing score. Brentley, I think this is just what they are as a passing unit. It's quick hitting, short receptions. We're going to try to win after the catch. We don't really have a downfield element here. We're not going to have 20 plus air yard passes, and instead we're going to rely on Shakir and James Cook. And then when that's covered, we are going to have Josh Allen have, you know, the superhuman extension ability to gain first downs or run for them or do anything like that. And that's just, again, what they are at this point. It's kind of stuffed a little bit from a passing game standpoint, as we saw from the Chiefs, maybe of each of the last 2 years for stretches. But on some level, I think they're kind of fine with it.
Yeah. Well, I think it works out because they have the personnel to have that style of offense, you know, receivers like Shakur, who are so good with the ball in their hands. And so kind of playing more of that quick game rather than the deep vertical stuff probably suits their personnel better than it has in years past. But I do think if the team wants to kind of, you know, reach their goals, ultimately winning the Super Bowl, there's going to have to have a vertical element to this offense that's currently lacking. I'd love to see Keon Coleman get more involved. Not sure what's going on with that, but, you know, I do think there's more upside to this offense that we've not seen so far this season.
Well, they also had a 12th man for them today, and that was Andy Dalton, who's a 15-year NFL veteran and played like he has seen 15 minutes in the league. Let's just go through each of these. All right. So after starting with the football and going 3 and out with -5 yards on the first series, which, by the way, Chuba Hubbard gets the start. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yep.
Long 11 play, 49-yard grind it out, which again, this is what the Bills like to do. Drive for a field goal for the Buffalo Bills. The Panthers, in their first drive with Rico Dowdle, imagine that, getting a 24-yard run on like a 3rd and 5. They're in the red zone. Andy Dalton, again at 39-ish years of age, decides to scramble, gets 4 or 5 yards, and then has the ball punched out from behind. So there's his first turnover. Okay. Then another 12 play, 58-yard field goal drive by the Bills. So that should have been at least 3-3, maybe even 7-3. The Panthers were up. Instead, they're now down 6-0. They get a field goal drive. So it's 6-3. Then we get a touchdown drive by the Buffalo Bills to take them up to, I think it's 12 or 13-3 at that point. And then Andy Dalton, out of his own red zone area, is trying to throw a wide receiver screen and throws it in directly to AJ Epinez's mitts. We see this all the time. You know, these are batted passes, or they check out of it, or he changes an arm angle, these types of things. And AJ Epineza tips it to himself and intercepts the pass and then takes it down to the 1-yard line, which then we get a short yardage, I think, Josh Allen touchdown run. So again, Andy Dalton has now taken points off the board because of a fumble, gifted the opposition a touchdown, which at that point brought it to 19-3. And then, Brentley, a 3rd down sack in the red zone as the Panthers are driving to get points prior to halftime. Again, 15-year NFL veteran knows that, hey man, at the very least on 3rd and goal, we need to get this football out of your hand, throw it out of the end zone, you know? Instead, he pump fakes it, gets sacked, time runs out. And so the Panthers, instead of at least 19-6 at half, are down 19-3 at halftime. And then it only gets worse from there. I mean, the guy cannot function. He, again, second guesses himself, clutches it multiple times, and gets sacked numerous occasions. He has no movement in the backfield. And yeah, any person, I understand that you can look at the box score and say, oh, Terry McMillan had 10 targets, 7 receptions, 99 yards. We want Andy Dalton to start. No, you do not, because Andy Dalton was probably the worst quarterback on the NFL field on Sunday, and that is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, I caught snippets of this game, but every time I feel like they would cut to some highlights, it's Andy Dalton messing up or doing some crazy mistake. So prayers for Bryce Young. Hopefully he gets healthy soon, because Panthers fans should not be subjected to any more of the Andy Dalton for future games.
I mean, it was abysmal. He also got sacked 7 times. Again, he cannot move. Now, there's some other notable things to talk about here for the Panthers. They've been down multiple offensive linemen due to injuries. They went down with 3 again in this game. Center Cade Mays left, who had been filling in for Austin Corbett and kind of overtaking him in the starting job. He said he's fine after the game, but we'll see. He missed a whole half. So did Taylor Moton, their star right tackle. He missed the entire second half. And then Brady Christensen, who has been a shining star here after a 1-year re-signed deal, filled in for Robert Hunt, who was, a massive free agent contract a couple off seasons ago, tears his Achilles, and he's going to be out for the entire season. So just as you thought like the Panthers had hope at 4-3, if you're down 3 offensive linemen, and you face the Green Bay Packers pass rush next time, then it's just over. It's going to be over.
Yeah.
And we also need to talk about the coaching here for a moment with this running back situation, because it's as simple put as at halftime. Okay. Chuba Hubbard has 7 carries for 17 yards. Rico Dowdle has 7 carries for 52 yards. It really is simple. I am not a Chuba Hubbard hater. He has talent. He's been productive in the past, but it is so clear that Rico Dowdle was a better football player at this moment that at the very least, you should have him going in the first series if you truly are going to do this 1 series for Rico, 1 series for Chuba, and we go back and forth. But instead, they start with Chuba and they go 3 and out. And against the Bills or any team, you can't afford to do that. They really should give Rico the vast majority of the opportunity. But if they're not, then you should at least start him in these games. And they're not doing either. And that's just poor coaching at this point.
Yeah, I know. I think Chuba is a team captain. So I think a lot of it's leadership and wanting to do right by him as the person. And I get all that. But it's evident Dowdle is the much more explosive ball carrier. I mean, it's clear as day. He makes defenders miss. He breaks tackles. He's what you want in a starting running back. And Chuba, he's serviceable. He's not a bad player. but it's very clear that Daddle should be the featured back in this offense. I just think Dave Canales is making a lot of mistakes that are hurting this unit.
I totally understand, leadership and a guy that's been around the organization and has helped them even win 4 games and turn things around a little bit. But the locker room probably knows that Rico Dowdle is better at football right now than Chuba Hubbard is. And so the correct decision needs to be made with that, but I can't count on them to make that decision this week. Okay, let's go to the team that Brentley has probably already locked up the NFC South.
Yeah.
And that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are 6-2 right now. Yes, only through 8 games, and they probably won this division. They go to New Orleans and beat the New Orleans Saints 23-3. Again, this is without Bucky Irving. This is without Mike Evans. This is without Chris Godwin. And this is really without offense. They have 88 rushing yards on 29 carries, and they have 124 net passing yards. And it really comes down to Anthony Nelson early on in this game being an absolute force on defense.
Yeah, he was everywhere. I'll say this. Good overall team win for Tampa, but this offense does have some issues. I'm obviously losing Mike Evans, losing Bucky. That's not easy. And then certainly, hopefully Chris Godwin can maybe come back down, at some point this year. But very clearly you see the lack of playmakers on the outside for Baker. Egbuka wasn't really heavily involved today. I think Tez was the leading receiver. They just looked really out of sync, Josh, throughout the whole game. I think there was only one offensive touchdown that Sean Tucker had, a quick goal line touchdown run. But they just looked out of sorts. Baker was missing a lot of passes. He was not very accurate today, I would say. And then there was a few drops which really hurt this unit. But thankfully, they played the Saints. So they didn't really need too much offense. But I do think for the unit to kind of get back on track, they need Bucky to come back healthy. I think that's really, really hurting this unit.
I think that was very clear in a certain series near the goal line. I believe it was the first series at the start of the second quarter, a 17-play, 91-yard turnover on downs drive, because they get down to the 1-yard line with 9:51 to go in the second quarter, 0-yard run. Then first and goal again, because the opposition was offside, a 0-yard run. Then second and goal from the 1, Rachaad White, 0-yard run. Then third and goal from the 1, 0-yard run from Rachaad White. Then fourth and goal from the 1, 0-yard run for Sean Tucker, which, by the way, Hayden and I just discussed on Stats versus Film that this season, Rachaad White had been the most efficient and highest success rate runner on short yardage situations. And that regression came crashing down to earth. But Brentley, it doesn't end there, because the first drive of the third quarter, once again, they get down to the 1-yard line. First and goal, incompletion. Baker Mayfield to Sterling Shepard on a goal line fade to Sterling Shepard.
A fade to Sterling Shepard. Who dialed that up?
Second and goal from the 1-yard line. 0-yard run from Sean Tucker. Third and goal from the 1-yard line. Baker Mayfield, incomplete pass to Emeka Egbuka. And then finally, fourth and goal, 1-yard touchdown run. 9 tries from the 1-yard line, and they get 1 positive gain out of it.
Yeah, it was actually painful to see. I mean, my reaction to dialing up a fade back of the end zone to Sterling Shepard, who I think is 5'10", what are we doing here? I mean, honestly, what are we doing? But yeah, no, I think, they need Bucky to be able to kind of convert those short yardage runs. I thought Sean Tucker overall played well today. I thought he looked explosive with the ball in his hands. I think he has more juice than Rachaad White. But yeah, I just feel like this unit overall just was not in sync is the best way to describe it. Egbuka had a drop in the end zone, which would have been a really tough catch, but you would think he would make that catch for a touchdown. And just overall, Baker, the whole unit just kind of looked out of sync.
And look, they won this week, but this is kind of back-to-back weeks where we can say that about the offense. They only scored 9 points last week against the Lions, and it's all these injuries that are piling up, that's for sure. I even saw Tristan Wirfs getting backed up a little bit and pressed into the backfield, which is very uncharacteristic. And then they go on this run here, Patriots, Bills, Rams over the next 3 weeks, which is tough. I mean, all 3 of those are very, very difficult. So we will see what happens with them. Okay. But to me, their MVP was on defense, and it was Anthony Nelson. I mean, we talked about fumbling quarterbacks while scrambling. He comes from behind and does like a hammer fist on Spencer Rattler and forces a fumble on a scramble. And then a couple drives later, does the same, punch it up, tips it to himself, runs over Spencer Rattler and takes it down very, very close to the end zone. Anthony Nelson, what a day for a role player. I love it, man, when a role player changes the course of a game.
Yeah, no, he was everywhere today. I mean, this defense overall, I mean, was very, very impressive. I think they forced 4 turnovers, sacked the quarterbacks quite a bit. You know, Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck were just kind of getting clobbered all game. So, you know, the unit for the defense was fantastic. And thank goodness, because if not, they probably would have lost this game. So props to Todd Bowles and that unit because they were everywhere.
Okay, we got to talk about this quarterback split because Spencer Rattler gets pulled. He goes 15 of 21, 136, 1 interception, 3 sacks. Was it basically in the middle of the third quarter at halftime that Tyler Shuck comes in and does nothing better? I mean, he's 17 of 30, 128, 1 interception, and 1 easy walk-in touchdown that he totally throws out of bounds to Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah, so the commentators were alluding to it all broadcast. I guess Kellen Moore internally is getting really frustrated with Rattler's turnovers. So last week, obviously, he had a tough game. I think he had the 2 or 3 interceptions last week.
It was real bad last week. Yeah, against
it was bad. It was bad. And early in the first quarter, he had the fumble, you know, they mentioned, and then again that kind of pick 6 or whatever it was. And that, I think that was kind of the last straw. You know, that was the last straw for Kellen Moore after the interception. And it was in the middle of the third quarter, and he just kind of sat him down, you know. And I do think Shuck didn't look much better than Rattler, but he also had some moments where you're like, okay, you kind of see it. You know, he's athletic, big, strong kid, had a good arm, but I don't know if either of these guys are going to be the long-term answer for the Saints.
Yeah. So I think I've had a pretty level head with Spencer Rattler, whereas, you know, I think it can be quite easy to see a guy who's played a lot of college football and then make some plays and they're kind of highlight plays and you're like, oh, he actually has something. Whereas to me, he's just part of the feistiness of the Saints and it has kind of fit what they've done well in terms of run a bunch of plays, and he's mobile and he has a decent arm and can throw these passes either short, and then when they want to attack the field, you know, on 20+ yard passes. It is surprising to me that internally Kellen Moore seemingly has been down. I understand they're 1-7. That is not the surprising part of it. It's just, I don't know if Tyler Shuck's going to be any better than this. And obviously neither are going to be the quarterback of the future, but Rattler, again, just from my seat, has been part of the reason why some of these games have been competitive for them. That a lot of these quarterbacks ruin games and tank offenses. And I don't know, other than last week, and I guess this week, he has really tanked the offense so far.
I completely agree. I didn't love the move to bench him today. I think when you look at like in totality of his performance this year, you have to walk away from it positively. You know, he's played well besides last week and today. And you see flashes of, hey, there could be something here. He's a strong arm. He's athletic. Like, he's not afraid to push the ball into tight windows. Like, a lot of the things you like to see for a young quarterback, and it's only his second year. And so, like, for me to bench him so soon and he has such a short leash, I thought it was a mistake. I'll be curious to see what happens next week if they go back to Rattler or if, you know, they're going to stick with Shuck. But I did think it was a bit premature to kind of put him on the bench.
Again, they're 1-7. And also part of this, Brentley, is they spent the fucking 40th overall pick, excuse my French, on Tyler Shuck, who's 26 years old. And so if you're already going to have another starting quarterback next season, you have to play Tyler Shuck at some point, or else it's a literal waste of a second round pick, and not the 64th overall pick, the 40th overall selection in the NFL draft.
Literally might as well be a first round pick. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I from that perspective, I do understand putting Tyler Shuck into the game. They do have the Rams coming up next on the road. So good luck to you if that's your first start in the NFL.
Best of luck.
Tyler Shuck. Any closing thoughts here with Rashid Shaheed or Chris Olave? This is the first time with Alvin Kamara, without Kendre Miller on the field. We had seen Kendre Miller, have some stuff inside the 10-yard line. I thought he ran really well this season when he was in. And then, his backup was Devin Neal, but Devin Neal doesn't get a single carry and only gets 3 receptions for 11 yards.
Yeah, I mean, they were just always down in the game, so they never wanted to commit to the running game. I think they passed the ball so much today. It was crazy. Rashid Shaheed, literally, I think the last play they had on offense went down with injury. Big bummer. Hopefully it's not too serious, but he had to get help coming off the field. And Olave, I mean, he had an okay game, but he's just constantly hurt. Like every other series, it feels like he's being helped to the sideline or limping. Like it's wild, Yeah. But overall, the whole offense just couldn't really do much today. I mean, the defense of the Tampa was everywhere.
And both of those names continue to be mentioned in trades out there. I think Rashid Shaheed is more of a complete wide receiver than other people do. To me, he's often viewed as just a speed merchant, but I think he has like really nice route pacing. And as we saw in what should have been a touchdown, like his release and instant separation is just there. Again, I think he's kind of Jameson Williams-esque without the first round draft capital attached to him.
Yeah.
And then Chris Olave, I think Jeremy Fowler put this out there that if he doesn't agree to a contract extension, they'll be more likely to deal him, but the price will be quite high. So I think both are still extremely talented players and would help whoever, whatever offense gets them.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's close out final 2 games here. The first one, the Indianapolis Colts continue to roll. They're 7-1 on the season. I mean, they did face the Tennessee Titans here, but they posted another 38-point affair. And it's on the back of Jonathan Taylor, who for the 4th time this season, Brentley already has 3 touchdown games. So 3 touchdown games, and MVP, offensive player of the year. These are all in his sights. I mean, his first touchdown was an 18-yard run where on his offhand, he did such a cool job of like warding off linebackers and safeties, and like his footwork to create little pockets of space and then burst through them was fantastic. He also had an 80-yard touchdown run for a dude that's 220-ish pounds. He's super physical and also super fast. And if it's nice and properly blocked, which they were Grand Canyons of space today with a Jeffrey Simmons-less Tennessee Titans-led defense, then he's just going to run right through it and beat your angles and get to the edge and tiptoe along the sideline, and he's off to the races. So yeah, 12 carries, 153 yards, 2 scores, and then 2 receptions, 21 yards, and 1 touchdown. The other name I want to call attention to here is Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
Because your team and your offense and your game is hot when crazy things happen. There was a 14-yard Michael Pittman grab, which hit him in the face over the middle of the field. And instead of falling to the ground or going into a defender's hands, the ball skies in the air directly in the path of Michael Pittman continuing to run in a straight line. And he catches it for a 14-yard gain. And then a few plays later, he's got one-on-one isolated coverage. The ball gets pinned to his back right shoulder, and he just goes up and catches it like this and falls into the end zone for a touchdown. So Alec Pierce also had a 50-yard reception, again on 1-on-1 coverage. He had inside leverage. Daniel Jones throws it up, and again, big catch, big gain, comes down with it. There is nothing wrong here with the Indianapolis Colts other than Daniel Jones taking 3 sacks in the first half, but they got that ironed out and they dominated.
Yeah. I mean, again, like when they showed highlights of this game, all you see is Jonathan Taylor just exploding through the Tennessee Titans defense. I mean, truly
Crazy.
Like MVP, offensive player of the year, like he needs to be in the forefront of that conversation. But like from what I saw of this game, I just love Shane Steichen's play calling. Such a balanced offense, spread the ball around, maximizing Daniel Jones' strengths, relying on JT. Like, I just love it. They're a well-oiled machine, and I think this team's the real deal. I really do. And Tyler Warren, I mean, he had a good game. Like, just great offense.
I mentioned the 50-yard completion to Alec Pierce. That's on 3rd and 13. So, again, that's Daniel Jones trusting his guy to go up and get it. And then the Josh Downs touchdown that he scored on a 3 for 39 and 1 score, that was on 3rd and 8. And so Daniel Jones just understand the time he had behind this offensive line to elongate the play just long enough to, have that score. And it just goes to show, again, if a quarterback trusts in his environment, trusts in his protection, trusts in his guys to make plays, and has the answer of when to go to the football in what moment of the play and phase of the play, then good things can happen. I mean, Brentley, you go back and watch these games.
Yep.
Like, the Colts offense has the most wide open pass catchers in the NFL consistently. And it's on a weekly basis. So Shane Steichen is walking into the cursed Coach of the Year award as we go on. I mean, they're 7-1.
Yeah.
They're 7-1. I just don't know who's slowing them down at this point. We will get some fun games when they face like the Chiefs and the Texans defense and the Jaguars and the Seahawks and the 49ers. But until then, it's the Steelers and the Falcons over the next 2 weeks. So 9-1 is definitely in the path. Okay. We'll close this thing out on this game with the Tennessee Titans, and it was abysmal. I mean, Tajay Spears did have, I think, a 41-yard run, but then the rest, he only had 8 carries for 18 yards. He had a meaningless goal line touchdown at the end. Kamiri DK is this team's like go-to receiver, and he goes with 7 for 93. But this is one of those offenses right now, Brentley, where I watch it and I understand like stats are being put on a box score, but it all just seems pointless and meaningless and disjointed and without expression or flow or styling. And my biggest fear right now is Cam Ward, when there's a pressure look or a delayed blitz or a free rusher, he kind of just like drops his eyes and runs into another pass rusher and doesn't know if there is a hot. I don't know where the hot is and need to get the football out to that or to recognize that pre-snap. And to me, that could be a glaring issue heading into his second season.
Yeah. No, he's showing a few signs of regression in terms of that, like the pre-snap stuff. He was never great at it in college, but I thought he made good strides at Miami last year. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of those issues flaring up, and obviously the supporting cast, the head coach change, like there's a lot of things going on around him. But I would love to see a little bit more progression instead of regression. And I fear that that's kind of what's happening, unfortunately, with Cam Ward.
Also, Mike McCoy, interim head coach, know your role, dude, and understand the situation. They're down 7-17 with 1:53 left to go in the first half. They have the ball on the 48-yard line, the opposite end, the plus 48 here on 4th and 4. And he just punts the football, just punts it instead of like, hey, we are 1-6 at this point. Why not have this drive to try to score a touchdown and, bring that to 17-14 or even a field goal, 17-10 heading into halftime. And instead you just punt it and you get no points. So you just give up. You surrender punt and your team sucks right now. All right. Speaking of sucks, we'll close this show out with the New York Jets getting their first victory, 39-38 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Jets are 1-7. Bengals now drop to 3-5. This is after, Brentley, a 23-point fourth quarter from the Jets. After he took stray shot from the team's owner, and Woody Johnson was asked about the comment afterwards, said, that's just outside noise. I understand he's the owner of the football team, but I consider that outside noise, which that's a 10-9 round for Justin Fields, who's played terribly this year.
Love that line.
In this one moment. I love it, man. This is on the back of Breece Hall, 18 carries, 133 yards, and 2 scores. Justin Fields, 244 passing yards, which, by the way, just a couple games ago, he had -10 passing yards. We can talk about the Jets offense, but Hayden, I know you're a draft guy. Part of me instantly wants to jump to this Bengals defensive unit who fired Lou Anarumo. They had no personnel last year. Brought in Al Golden from Notre Dame, heralded and former NFL coach on top of it. Have spent 7 of their last 8 first and second round draft picks on defense. And they have the worst unit in the league among them, right? You can't give this situation up to a lack of an offense. And that's just what they did in this game and lost it.
Yeah, no, I mean the Bengals defense, they have players. They have Miles Murphy, Logan Wilson, who I know is requesting a trade. They just don't play well as a unit. There's always miscommunications, there's missed tackles, there's blown assignments, and it's the fundamentals really, because they have good players in their secondary. I like Cam Taylor-Britt, like they have guys, but it's always just players not aligned in the correct spot or allowing open receivers in zones, like bunch of coaching issues. So I think that's really the kind of the crux of this unit.
I mean, the coaching stuff, again, we all know who Justin Fields is.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Garrett Wilson here. And you can't even take away like his primary read. You can't manufacture a pressure look. You can't force them off the field in one like fourth down or fourth quarter drive to win the game. Again, the investments they made in defense haven't paid off. Some of the guys are like finally taking steps forward. You have Trey Hendrickson like in and out of this game. We know what happened with like Shamar Stewart prior to the season and not being in training camp. That's again a lot of investment. 30 defensive picks over the last few years, and they're still terrible. That's really bad management. Just really bad management.
Yep.
And Zach Taylor, some bad coaching here too. So
his seat's getting hotter. His seat is getting hotter by the day. I would say.
Just wondering what's up all around here. Final note: Chase Brown does go 12 carries for 73 yards and a score, 3 catches, 32 yards, and another score in the air. So that's 2 straight weeks of Chase Brown getting home. We'll see if that can continue moving forward, and that would be a huge win for everyone's fantasy football teams. They do have the Bears and the Steelers over the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
All right, Brentley, that does it. We covered it all. I mean,
good. Another one in the books.
Another one in the books. That's 10 games. 10 games that we covered here today. Thank you all for tuning in. Hayden and Jacob will be back after Monday Night Football with the Waiver Wire show. I'm sure plenty will be discussed there. And then as well, Stats versus Film on Tuesday with all the individual player performances and underlying stuff that we did not get to discuss here today. As always, if you made it to the end, be sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, help us reach 170K before the end of the season. Shout out to Mo Show behind the scenes, Brentley and Hayden in front of the camera, up the villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.